Dad came from Vasto in Italy, and his grandfather came out here in 1926, in February I think it was, and Dad followed about 9 months later, and he was only 20 years old when he came here, and him and his father worked at timber cutting up at Wongan Hills. After I was about 6 years old, I suppose, and Dad wanted to move out somewhere. We were only renting the house in James Street in West Perth, so we went out to a rental place in McDonald Street, which to us was, sort of right out in the sticks then, and we ended up, I suppose, after about 2 or 3 days, we were a bit homesick for where we'd come from in West Perth, but we soon found that we had a big adventurous playground in front of us. There was bush everywhere, and to us it was sort of unexplored, and it was an adventure just going in there. And we'd go for walks with our dog and go through the bush, see all the wildlife. There was goannas and snakes and all that sort of stuff there, but we kept a respectable distance away from them. Quite often we'd find ourselves, after about an hour, not knowing how to get home. We're stuck in the middle of the bush and thinking, how the heck are we going to get home? And it was okay if we had Brownie with us, the dog, because he'd lead us back home, but you had to wait for him to get the urge to go back home. He was having as much fun as we were. And when he wasn't with us, what we used to do then, we would climb up the highest tree, one of us, as high as possible, and we'd look for chimney smoke. Over the top of the smaller trees, you could see where the chimney smoke was coming from, and that used to indicate to us, right, that's the direction we've got to take to get home. So we'd do that, and that was fine, except for sometimes we'd end up in North Perth and not Chewett Hill. And you'd have to trek all the way back to Chewett Hill and that. But we had so much fun, just going out in the bush, and sort of, to us it was sort of unexplored. You never knew what you were going to find. But we used to catch the buses into Perth to go and watch the Saturday matinee movies on a Saturday morning. We had our favourite driver, his name was Alan, and when we got on the bus, it was I think it was a threepenny fare for the ride into Perth, and we give him the threepence for the fare, and he'd give us a penny ticket and 2 pennies change, and so we'd have tuppence to spend that we didn't expect to. So from then on, whenever we walked up to the bus stop, we'd try and sort of see who the driver was as the bus approached. Oh no, it's not Alan, let it go. Oh, there's Alan. Okay, so we'd go in and know that we'd get our tuppence back from our penny fare. There were no bus inspectors in those days. I remember sometimes I'd be running up to get the 275, I knew it was coming, and I'd just missed the bus by about 50 metres. I'd see it take off, and so I'd run across the Grenville Reserve, up Banksia Street, and hook onto McDonald Street, and by the time I got there at the bus stop, the bus had to stop 3 or 4 times before it got to there, so I ended up catching the bus I missed. We used to ride on the backs of the buses with the prams and put our feet on the bumpers, and we'd sort of sidle at the stop when there were people there waiting to board the bus, and we'd hang around near the rear of the bus, and as the people got on the bus and the bus started to take off, we'd run and jump on, hang on. And initially we'd only ride probably 2 or 3 stops and then get off. And then one day we were in town, and it was night time, and we were about to go home. We had the money to go home, but we thought, oh, why don't we try and get on the back of the bus and ride all the way to Chewett Hill. So I know that we used to always go to the Royal Show each year, which was usually the end of September, right now actually, and we'd save our pennies up for that and spend most of our money there. And by the time the Osborne Park Show came around, it was only about another 9-10 weeks, because it always held on the first week in December. And we used to go down there and spend our money in the first hour, having rides and fairy floss and all the stuff that you did as kids at the show. And then we'd hang around then till the fireworks at night time and watch it. But yeah, we used to go down there and meet up with other kids that we knew and look for girls, as all the boys did at that age, sort of thing. But yeah, they're all memories. Yeah, Dog Swamp was, a special place for us. Those times, that we used to come down here and just enjoy ourselves, just being natural kids, doing what kids did, and that. And then if we got tired of wandering around the swamps, we'd just wander towards Perth and just take a walk and a stroll up there, and that. We used to know some of the kids, further closer to Perth, near Yanchep Traders. There was on the corner of Angove Street and Wanneroo Road, near where the old North Perth Hotel used to be. And we used to know kids from that area as well. And because they used to wander down here and come to the swamp, that's how we used to get to know them all. And it became a sort of a meeting place and that. And we'd have our games of footy. Sometimes we'd come down here and it'd be, as well as the swamp, we'd come down for a game of footy as well. I suppose the thing was that we were away from any supervision. There was no one saying, don't go here or don't do this or don't do that. We had the freedom to do what we wanted. We used to collect the tadpoles and take them home. We'd go around and find, branches of trees and that and try and use them as floating logs and see if we could float on them. Getting wet as buggery and having to trot home and get a change of clothes sort of thing. But that was it mainly, that you just got away from, I suppose, all the cars and everything else. It was quiet, and you just had that sense of kids enjoying themselves out in the bush, in the open, and that. No, it was good. The other ones that I can remember in Chewett Hill were near the Victory Garage and Callaghan Store, and it used to be Balcatta Beach Road before it was North Beach Drive. And between Wanneroo Road and Main Street there was a few market gardens. There was Beros and Gabelich and Vlahov and Jodrell. They used to all have market gardens in there, but we never went up that area too often. When we were in West Perth, I went to the first pubs and second pubs at St Bridget's, as I mentioned before, right near the church where Mum and Dad got married. And then when we moved out to McDonald Street, I then went to Christian Brothers College in Leadville, in Franklin Street, Leadville, in 1950. I only went there for the 1 year, and then I don't know whether it was because it was costing a lot of money, and Dad had the house in Cape Street he was building, that he sent me to Chewett Hill Primary School for 4th, 5th and 6th grade. And it was funny too, because I went there in 4th grade and we'd moved into Cape Street by then, and St Kieran's School was further down in Cape Street towards Main Street, and Dad says, you've got to go to the Catholic school now. You went to the state school last year, but that's because we had to do this and that. You've got to go there. So I went down to St Kieran's, and they only had boys up to 4th grade. I only took girls past 4th grade. So I couldn't go there, so I had to tell Dad, no, I can't go there. So I went back to Chewett Hill Primary then for 5th and 6th grade. And I remember the principal there, I think it was Mr Foxcroft, was the principal at the time. And like kids, we all had our favourite teachers. There was Mrs Gardner that pretty much everyone liked, and Mr Ibbotson, he was very friendly as well. And they were the ones that I mostly remember teaching-wise.